Welcome to Out of the Best Books, where we pull a new book from the Deseret Book Library and let it inspire insightful conversations for the curious believer in the gospel of Jesus Christ. I'm Cole Wissinger.
And I'm Sarah Collins. We are part of Deseret Book's podcast team, and we are hosting this new show because we've all heard stories that young people are leaving faith.
The people we know are really engaged, and they are believers having insightful conversations.
Right, and we want to continue these conversations, and since we have had access to the library of the best books, let's have these conversations behind the mic.
This is Out of the Best Books by Deseret Book.
And today we have artist and author Kate Lee joining us. Kate's watercolors have been a fixture of Latter-day Saint art, and her book, Connecting with Christ, tells the stories and testimonies behind her work. Kate, welcome!
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
So, the podcaster brain in me when I first read through your book, and it was a wonderful read.
Thank you.
It's formatted so well because it starts with a picture. Every chapter got 10 chapters, so it's 10 pictures. Start with a picture, then you tell your story, your testimony of what came behind it,
Right.
and then it ends with some questions. And I thought we could just do an entire podcast that writes itself where we show a picture,
Right.
you retell the story that you already told, but we want people to read the book
Right.
to do that. And
Yes.
so my question for you is there a particular picture that got left on the cutting room floor or that you have since painted since the book came out that also lends itself to one of these kinds of stories?
It does. And there's lots, there are many paintings I can think of that would be like, oh, that would be so great because it's applicable to lots of different situations in our lives, right? But there's one that I just love that I wish I could have added, and it's called Turning Darkness into Light. And the image is a girl and she's kneeling, right? And she's holding up her light and there's darkness behind her, and she can either choose to turn that darkness into something good or she can choose to give into the darkness, right? Because that's a choice we all have every day. And that is something when I painted that, I was currently going through something heavy, and I just thought I could either take this situation and let it defeat me, or I could just take it and what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? How can I get closer to Christ from this? And so that's what I was like, I need to paint something that represents courage to turn a situation into something light. So,
Well, along with that, I read in your book, you do this a couple times. How do you start to envision and see those? Like, what's the process for going, I got to get this onto paper? Like, do you see it first in your mind?
yeah, it usually is just like, whatever it is that inspires it is like, oh my gosh, I love this idea and I have to get it out before, it sticks there in my brain, but I do have to get it out on the paper. So yeah, it's usually an image in my head that I can just get out and hopefully it comes together the way that I saw it in my head. So
That's amazing.
Oh, your whole library with Deseret Book is done in these watercolors. And the way you chose that light picture to talk about here, and there's a few others in the book that are featured that feature light. I just think the watercolor exemplifies that a lot. So talk about, as an artist, to us non-artists, what watercolor as a medium allows you to do.
Oh gosh, that's such a good question. First of all, I feel like I'm such an amateur with it. So I didn't pick it up until I was in high school. And even then I was not. I felt very unsure with it because it's kind of it's water and it has a mind of its own and it can do its own.
Yeah, it restricts you almost in a way. Yeah.
But then also like it's like that painting, you can either like let it defeat you or you can like, what can I do to make this better? Right.
Very cool.
But I really love it because it allows you to be as light on the paper as you want. You can do like with the cover here, with this yellow color here, you can be as light as you want to be with the color. So it can be a really soft tone or like a soft, does that make sense? Like an image. Yeah. And like with oil, I'm not bashing any other medium. They're all great, but I don't understand oil. I don't get it. But it is, to me, oil is just like so sharp, where watercolor is a soft, gentle, kind of a feel. And I just love it. I love what it allows you to bring out the light. For me, it allows you to bring out that light so much better than I could ever do with any other medium.
And it goes really well with the subject matter of especially your religious artwork.
Right.
And even the minimalistic designs, like the negative space that you allow yourself
I
to.
love that, yeah.
It leaves us to do the thinking and the feeling.
What I want.
Okay,
yeah. I do it on purpose because I do. I want it. I leave it minimal because I want you to be able to put yourself in the situation. I want you to be able to put like your experiences in whatever the painting that you're looking
No one has defined faces.
Yeah.
In any of
except for Through His Light, which is not really defined, but there's, because that's one of my earlier ones. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I want to put a pin in that because that's one of the ones that I've bookmarked and I've fallen in love with that image. Just going back to like what Cole was talking about, where we can kind of put ourselves into some of your artwork. You are so open and vulnerable when it comes to sharing your personal stories. And you do that in your art, but also in your own stories. And I kind of want to know, like, how have you found the courage to do that? Or is there something in particular that inspired you to kind of open your heart up that way?
I think I've always been that way. I've always just wanted to share. I've always wanted to talk, you know, but I think I hid it a lot too. And it wasn't until I was a missionary, really, that I was able to understand how to express that, you know, or how the importance of expressing what you're feeling and what you're going through and what you're carrying. Because when you're a missionary, I mean, when you're first out, you're learning so much and it's scary. And then my trainer was amazing. She gave me that space to like talk about what you're feeling. She really opened up the conversation. Like, I can see that you're stressed today. Let's talk about that, you know, which was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much, you know. And then to be able to learn that from her and then to pass it on to when I trained and then my other companions and then investigators and members, and to be able to sit and have conversations with them and say, like, I can see that you are struggling with this. Let's talk about that, you know, like, and then to be able to say, I get it. This is what I went through. And to be able to connect them that way, you know, was really, I loved it because I love to talk anyway. And so it was such a good space to be able to talk in that way. But also I've learned that when I open up like that, when I don't open up, because there are a lot of times that I tend to close down and not talk about feelings. And I notice that when I do that, I like shrink, you know, and I'm not in a good place. And I don't like that. And so I'd love to be able to express what I'm feeling and for lots of reasons, but it helps me to feel the light and feel Christ again. But also, I always want to be able to help somebody else feel good and happy. And so, like, if I can say, I get it. This is what I went through. What did you go through? You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I mean, thank you for sharing that even again. That is a gift I relate. Like, it is so nice when someone allows you the opportunity to just start talking, just be yourself. I mean, that is a gift that people have.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I don't know. Thank you. But to feel validated, right? And to feel heard and understood. I mean, that's what Christ did. And so that's what, you know, we can
It's a good example to look to.
Yeah.
One of the acknowledgments in the front of your book, I think, may also be an example of one of these people in your life. It says President Wasden.
Yeah.
That is the state president that first gave you kind of the assignments that led to expanding this artwork.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. President Wasden plays a huge role in where I am today. Without him, and I don't want to take any credit away from anybody, but, you know, he does play a huge role in me overcoming a lot of things and having the courage to share that and to feel like a safe, he helped me understand how to have a safe ground or like a safe foundation to stand on so that I could trust others with the stories and the feelings and experiences. So,
okay, well, I'd love to talk about the part of the book. I mean, we haven't even cracked this open yet, right? I love it. But the part, you brought this up before. It's called Through His Light.
Yes.
And it's the part that I bookmarked. So, I mean, first of all, this book's amazing because as a reader and as if this is a book, you get to look and flip through your beautiful artwork, Kate, which, by the way, I have some of it hanging in my home because I love your artwork. Through His Light. It's a painting that I've seen before from yours. The part that I actually really loved was what you wrote in this section. So I'm just going to read it because I wrote it down. It said, you said, I stood there in that hotel feeling a bit broken and a little lost. This was a backstory you shared about how you were on a vacation where you should be feeling all the normal things of excitement or relaxation. And instead there was something that had come up. And I think that more people can relate to that than you know, right? And you said, my sweet Mike, your husband, stood right there with me and listened to every word I said. When I was finished talking, he pulled me into a tight hug and said, I am right here with you every step of the way. And even though it's difficult now, the fog will lift and lose its strength and you will be able to walk forward. He was right. That struggle, that thick fog lifted and lost its strength. And the peace I needed came.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And I see you're already like,
no, I'm tearing up because
you're tearing up. It's a beautiful example of Christ-like love that your husband showed you. Can you share a little bit about how that, you know, this painting and that light that Christ holds right there with you, what that means to you?
It's everything. It's everything. Because without it, we couldn't walk forward. We couldn't this life is meant to change us, right? It's designed to change us. So we are going to have opposition. We're going to have those struggles. We're going to have those battles every day sometimes, and
wish it weren't true.
I know. Sometimes it would be so nice if it was just easy, but it's not meant to be easy, right? And if it was easy, we would never be where we are. We would never grow, and we wouldn't know Christ. There would be no reason to know Christ. And so his light means everything, because it is when you are walking through those hard times and you are like really, really down low, you can either, again, you can look down and forget about Christ, or you can look up and you can see that light, because the light, it touches everything, right? And it can lift you. And like this painting, if you're okay with it, I'll describe it a little bit.
Yeah, I'd love it.
This is my very favorite painting, like of all time. My very, very favorite. I think it's because I painted it in a time that was really, really, really dark. 2016 for me was a really heavy year, because I struggle with depression. That's something I think I talk about in here. But it was a really heavy year for me. And I just kind of felt like no matter what I did to find light or to find hope, I just couldn't find it. I just felt like it was always in front of me and I just couldn't quite catch up to it. And at the end of that year, I just was like, I remember my boys were gone at school and my husband was at work, and I was like ready to cave in. And I remember sitting on our stairs just sobbing. I was just like, I cannot go anymore. Like, I have no more strength. And I was like, just give me some kind of light, And I was laid there and nothing changed, and I didn't feel any light. I didn't feel any better. And I knew my family was coming home soon. So I was just like, just get up and keep going. You have to get up and keep going. And then it was like, oh gosh, 3 months later, that this image, I was sitting in Relief Society, and this image of Christ and a girl came into my mind. And I was like, oh my gosh. And it was like this new understanding, of like, Christ is here with you. He's sitting with you. You're just not allowing him to be with you. You kind of, because I was just like, I'm not enough. Nobody likes me. And I'm not, I'm not all of these things. And so it was like blocking that light. But that moment I saw the image, I was like, oh my gosh, Christ has been sitting with me the whole time. And his light is right here. And so like, if you look at the painting,
yeah,
it is Christ and her, and she's sitting there. Their hands are together, but his hands are not, they're not touching hers. They're just there to support, right?
Right.
And she's looking in her hands, and she's learning who she is, and she's learning like about her light and her gifts and her potential. And she's looking down at that. And then if you look at Christ in his eyes, he's looking at her, because he already knows who she is. He already knows what she can offer and what she can give and her light and all of that. And so it's just, I talk about this in a talk that I gave for Time Out for Women. So if you want to hear the whole thing, that's my latest talk with Time Out for Women. Anyway, but this whole thing is just her learning to trust his light and who she can become through his light. So it's everything for us, because without it, we can't become who we are.
It's so, it's just a beautiful, beautiful image.
Thank you so much. I love it. It's my favorite.
I really appreciate the way that you can communicate really well these really visual and surreal things that run through your brain, right? And the emotions, you're able to get them out. So the part that I bookmarked actually comes from one of the questions.
Yeah, okay.
Afterwards, like I said, so it goes picture, then your story, then a couple questions for us to think about, and some pages for people to write as well, which literally every book that's ever written should include pages for each.
Right.
So I want to read and then ask you back one of the questions in your own book, but it's from the chapter on the atonement.
Oh, yes.
It asks, what emotion do you feel when you think of the Savior's sacrifice?
And you want me to answer that? Because,
Please.
Yeah, no, that's such a... I remember this question and thinking, how would I answer this? Like, personally, like, I want other people to think about it, but how would I answer?
Yeah, it's hard.
It is, and I haven't, and this is my personal copy, and I haven't filled those questions.
It's a little blank.
Here's your opportunity.
Exactly. Because I think I've been afraid of that question, just because it is so much emotion, because the Savior, he lived and he died and he lives for us now. And everything that he ever did was for us. And especially those moments. Like, I think about that. If you look at the painting, the atonement painting, right? And that's like right before he's in that time with, he's just suffering and he's feeling and he's carrying everything, right? And there's a quote, gosh, where is that? Right at the end. When I look at this painting, I see a beautiful and powerful moment between Father and Son, where all of the pain of the world is felt, yet all of the love and forgiveness and grace is given. Christ died for us. He suffered so we could overcome. Turn to him, give your fears, doubts, heartaches, mistakes to him, and allow him to give you peace. And I think that his sacrifice, I just feel like I feel like that love and that hope and that no matter what comes my way, it just is, it's joy, that he was willing to feel everything that I feel and to suffer for my sins and my mistakes, but also for my pains and my heartaches. And doesn't that just testify to you how deeply he loves us?
I think it is something to sit and think about more than even sometimes put into words, because the thing that I love about this painting was the amount of light and white space. It's an amazing, and I know you were at one point a little bit fearful of putting this one on display.
Yeah.
And really, you don't often see the atonement depicted with such light.
No, I love that you see that, because it is true, because, we're on his mind, and it's not just like as a whole, it's individually. He's thinking about us specifically, and I just love that. And that whole open space there is that communication with Heavenly Father, but his understanding of what his purpose is and what his role is, that's all of that. So,
okay, well, Kate, one of our purposes for this podcast, we like to suggest a book to our audience. So we call it our add it to your to be read list. Is there something you would maybe suggest, hey, I want to, either it doesn't have to be something you read, it could be something you're adding to your own to be read list.
Okay, well, first read Connecting with Christ.
Yes, of course.
Okay, but the book I thought of I just started reading. I'm on page 7, so I just started it. But Spiritual Foundations by John Fossum.
Okay.
This book was a gift. And I was like, from somebody to me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to build my spiritual foundation. So I'm like way excited, because we can always deepen that foundation. And I'm only, like I said, I'm on page 7. But already, the insights and the suggestions, I'm like, yes, I never thought of building my foundation like that, So I'm way excited to continue to dive into it. So Spiritual Foundations is one I would absolutely recommend.
The final opportunity we want to give people to talk about your own book is, what do you hope that people take away and that they're inspired by when combining the visual with the words that you put in there?
I really hope that people can allow themselves to be vulnerable with their own experiences, so that they can bring that to Christ. So they can, look at the pain and be like, I've been through this, and then experience it with the Savior, so that when they're done, that they can feel closer to Christ. But I also hope that it's not just a one-time read for them. I hope that it's something that people revisit yearly or monthly or whatever, because the questions are going to be different every time. What I might answer a question this way this year, but next year it's going to be a different answer, So, but I do hope that their testimony of Christ is deeper and that they can just feel his love for them personally, because it's so important to feel that.
Yeah, and I think this book provides the perfect opportunity for that, with not only the visual images, but then the time to reflect. It will become such a personal...
I hope so, yeah.
It's not just a book that sits on your shelf. I think it'll be almost journal-like and something to revisit over and over again.
Yeah, and that is just something that's really tender and just really special to people. It's something that is your experiences and your experience with Christ is what I want. So.
Oh, I appreciate that so much. Thank you, Kate, for being here.
Thank you so much. It was awesome. This is so delightful.
Connecting with Christ by Kate Lee makes a great gift for the art lover in your life, and it just looks really good on your shelf, because of course it does. It's by an artist, and the cover art, and everything is wonderful. And so, thank you again.
Thank you.
You can find Connecting with Christ and so many of Kate Lee's art prints at your local Deseret Book or on the Deseret Bookshelf Plus app, along with thousands of other great, fantastic, really the best books. We'll see you next time on Out of the Best Books.